Join Coach Ryan as he unveils the insightful Veterinary Hero segment. Stay tuned.
Segment of athletic conceptual training. I hope that you enjoy this wonderful interview and learn lots. Don't forget, like, subscribe so that we can keep this going. Thanks again. Have a good time. Today on Athletic Conceptual Training, we're sitting down with a true leader in veterinary medicine, Dr. Tom Vega, Chief Medical Officer at Concierge Companions Vet Med. From Ross University to redefining how veterinary care meets the client. His journey is one of innovation, resilience, and passion. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Tom.
Hey, Ryan, it is my pleasure.
Yeah. Let's just jump right into it and get to know you. Let's rewind. What sparked your passion for veterinary medicine? Was there a defining moment or patient that sealed the deal?
Yes, so there was a defining patient, I think, more than a moment, because this patient I followed over several moments. So my mother, when I was a child, my mother was an administrative personnel at Brookfield Zoo. It's Chicago's or the Illinois' largest zoo. It's right outside in a Chicago suburb.
Okay.
It's our largest zoo. And she worked in administration there, and I would spend my summers, as there was really childcare wasn't really an option at the time, so I would spend my summers just going about the zoo. It's a controlled environment, obviously,
Yeah.
and I would spend a lot of time with the zookeepers, not behind the scenes only so much, not in dangerous situations or anything, but behind the scenes in the corridors, hanging out in the break room, things like that. And over time, my favorite were the gorillas, and I got to, I don't want to say befriend because we were never, I was always on the other side of the glass, but their name was Chicory. They were a lowland gorilla, one of the longest residents there at the zoo. And this was actually the first gorilla diagnosed with a brain tumor via MRI. And this was in 1994. Diagnosed with an MRI with a brain tumor, and the zoo had brought in, as the first time the surgery was ever done, to remove the tumor. They brought in a neurosurgeon from one of the Chicago human medicine departments, and then a neurosurgeon in veterinary medicine, also performed the surgery. And I actually got to be there in the theater, watching from the other side of the glass. And over time, as Chicory recovered, they had this giant scar on the side of their head. And this was during the summer, so I was still hanging around the zoo. I wasn't in school yet. And I would visit every day the enclosure, and I would just watch, and I would look at that giant scar, and I would wonder, did it hurt? I would wonder, are they okay? Things like that. And I would just spend time there. And and that's when I decided that I really cared for animals, right? And I didn't want to be that neurosurgeon standing there, performing the surgery, but I wanted to help animals, right? And that's what sealed the deal, if you will. It was Chicory. Since they've since passed on, but it was Chicory, and I was 7 years old, and at 37, I fulfilled that promise. So,
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, Chicory. I
yeah,
wonder,
Chicory, yeah.
did you ever find out how they came up with the name Chicory?
Yeah, so gorillas, when they're brought into not just any zoo, well, zoos in general, or there's usually nomenclatures that associated with them. For example, shelters will pick a day where it's like Disney Day, right? And everything that comes in that day gets a Disney name.
Okay.
Or the shed, they're doing away with this, but when I volunteered there, they had a Inuit theme for their names of their beluga whales. So each one got some type of Inuit-based name, respectfully. But since then, we're kind of doing away with it out of new views, which are important, and we can discuss those too. Yeah. So that's usually where they come from. It's usually associated with some type of breed or lineage or village or of that nature, but it really does differ. I can't speak for sure on the Zoological Society's nomenclature, but
Got it. You're now the Chief Medical Officer at Concierge Companion Vet Med. What's the vision behind this model and how does it differ from traditional vet care?
Yeah. So here's the thing. It does not differ from traditional vet care because traditional vet care will and always be gold standard medicine delivered to clients. I will always stand by my colleagues, along with myself, we've all taken the same oath. We wear the same clothes, we use the same tools, and we have the same knowledge. Um,
Mhm.
we'll get to that question on perspective at some point. We can talk about perspectives and things like that on veterinary medicine. But that's where I start with it.
Got it. You've been called a servant leader in vet med. What does servant leadership look like in your day to day work?
Yeah. So that's my favorite term. I love servant leadership. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite, but one, it's short.
Hmm.
I've done a lot of reading, right, over the past couple, decades, if you will. So I servant leadership, you have to wear many hats, right? That's one of the
Yep.
themes of the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book, right? Is that leaders wear many hats. Prior to veterinary medicine, I was in leadership, as you know, and you wear all of those hats, right? One moment we're having a conversation, one moment we're having a performance improvement plan conversation with one employee, right? And let's equate that to, in the same universe, you're having a euthanasia conversation, right? So we have
Right.
that going on. And then we complete that conversation, and the next employee comes in this universe, right? In my past universe. And at the same time, I'm walking into a new puppy exam, and I'm
Yeah.
walking into a new conversation completely unrelated to the feelings that that person was just having about being put on a performance improvement plan, which I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's the same thing as euthanizing a pet, but same unexpected trauma, right? It's something that
Right.
happened that you didn't think was going to happen either at that moment or even at all. So it's very important to be able to stop, to be able to take a moment and say, hey, this is what was going on in this situation. I need to compartmentalize that for a moment and move on to this situation because, yes, employee A needed the support and that type of coaching and leadership, but employee B, who's now in my office, or client B that's now in exam room two, uh, needs a completely different skill set, a completely different leader. Same person, right? But I have to put on a different hat.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that has served me well coming into veterinary medicine is understanding and accepting and learning how to take on that hat. Not just taking off the hat and putting on another one, but knowing which one to take off, which one to put on is very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. It takes a lot of growth, I feel like, to get to that
Well,
point, though.
it's growth, it's maturity, and some of this comes with time, right?
Yeah.
Maturity comes with time. I'm not a believer in that because of you're a certain age, you should be at a certain level, things like that. Time is ever progressing, right?
Hmm.
So I think with time, with experience, and with self awareness, being
Mm,
aware of the
mm.
fact that you're feeling X, Y, and Z, or that the person you're talking to is feeling X, Y, and Z, and being almost out of body, right? Stepping out of your body, stepping out of the moment, right? And saying, this is what's going on, right? I may be having a conversation with an employee and I can see on their face things are starting to change, right? Okay, let's take a break. Let's stop. Let's talk about what we just talked about. No different than when I say, Fluffy has cells on cytology consistent with lymphoma. We need to continue to test. But as soon as I say that, their face changes, right? Okay, let's
Mhm.
stop. I'm not going to go and tell you each single test we have to do and the mean survival time and the medications and the regimen. We'll get to that. But right now, let's stop and let's talk about what's going on now because you're not going to listen to anything I say. And this is also part of emotional intelligence is listening to understand versus listening to respond. So when we're
Yeah.
having a conversation, we're listening to understand each other. But I might say something where you're going to switch and you're going to start to listen to respond. And at that point, I've lost you. The
Yeah.
conversation itself has lost control at that point, right? There's no
Mhm.
end in sight. There's no itinerary anymore of how the conversation's going. So it's very important to be, I say that to say it's very important to always be self-aware at all times, not just of your surroundings, but of how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, how are you responding and interpreting things, whether they're being said to you or you're saying it, and always being aware of what, before it comes out of your mouth, right? What are you saying? What are you thinking before it comes out of your mouth? And the implications that have, because as Maya Angelou will say, right? Words are very powerful, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but words
Right.
are very powerful, so powerful that it scared her into silence, right? So, I say that to say, be careful what you say, and say things you mean, but say things with purpose, and let the people you're talking to, whether it's a client, whether it's a direct report, whether it's a colleague, uh, speak in a manner or communicate in a manner that is open to where that person feels like not only are they listening, but they're being understood in return.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said, and it just made me think about being a leader in the hospital and being aware of my surroundings day to day,
Yeah,
and acknowledging that mental health is an issue,
yeah,
and a lot of um, our fellow veterinary professionals need to take it seriously. I see it day in and day out, and I don't know why it stood out to me, but one of the consistent things that I get from clients and even people that I work with, they say that I'm a good listener, and it
mm,
makes them feel heard. And whenever I go into a situation now in my mature state,
yeah.
I I try to gather as much information, and I do that by just sitting back, asking questions, and letting people tell me and reading them. And
You're
it gets
listening
me,
to understand.
yeah, and it gets me so much further. And oftentimes, people work their own issues out
Yeah,
right before your eyes.
yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen it so many times where I'm either coaching a direct report or even just coaching another doctor maybe, and we're just rounding, for example, on a case and how
Hmm.
we handle the case, things like that, and you'd be surprised, if you just, well, what do you think about it, right? Or how do you see it? Or yes, I'll give you my opinion, too, but how does that make you feel? What are you thinking about? Why are
Yeah.
you doing that? And they come to the understanding, right, that they're at their own, and they say, oh, wait a minute, my perspective has changed.
Yeah.
And one of the things is the perspective, right? And I always tell people there's this caricature that circulates the internet every once in a while, where it's two people and there's a six in between them, right? And if you're
Hmm.
standing over here, you see a nine, and if you're standing over here, you see a six, right? But it's the same
Yeah.
object. It's
Yeah.
perspective and it's perception.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Wow. I feel like we could go on and on with this topic. I mean, mental
Oh
health
yeah, we could
and
we could talk about it forever because it's one of those things. It's like the universe. It's ever expanding. We learn things about it every day about communication. Yes, there's tried and true skills and
Mhm.
methods of learning those skills, but there's new ways to communicate every day. We're faced with situations where we have to not only communicate but adjust our communication style, and not even from person to person sometimes, but even with the same person in the same conversation, you sometimes have to adjust your communication style.
Sure, sure. I think from what I'm gathering and what I've experienced, uh, a person's environment, both growing up and what they're currently living in, really affects their communication style as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of research behind that, and that's more in like child development and things like that. But there's a lot of research behind that, and we've even talked about it, as you know, in your basic genetics courses, right? Your
yeah,
rudimentary courses, right? In
yeah,
nature versus nurture and things like that,
right.
genetics, and what are we predisposed to versus does our environment influence, and all of that. No different than, you can tell sometimes with not bad. You can tell sometimes with less than ideal behavior adult dogs that maybe as a puppy, right? maybe we got away with a couple things, right? Maybe our training wasn't reinforced, things like that. Not to, you know what I mean? Rearing, right? Because rearing an animal, I can use the word rearing an animal, rearing a child, as you will. So.
Awesome. What's one of the wildest, most heartwarming, or unexpected cases you've handled that you'll never forget?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest with you. That when I looked at that, I this isn't the first time I've been asked that question, and each time I can never come up with an answer, and I'll tell you why. The reason is I am very much about compartmentalizing.
I see.
I am a veterinarian, yes, and I'm a proud one, and I'm a dang good one.
Hmm.
Shameless plug. No, yeah, that's up for interpretation, but that's just fun. But I say that to say we all, I, I compartmentalize in that when I leave the hospital, that stays at the hospital.
Yeah.
I worry for colleagues that I see that are just always on. You're always a veterinarian, right? Where we could be at a restaurant, right? And then somebody has a pet question. No, I'm in no way rude, but I don't, and this has nothing to do with finances or pain or anything like that. I'm not on right now. I deserve time off too, right? And that
Yeah.
doesn't negate the fact that I love animals just as much as the next person. I would also run into an expressway to try to catch a dog that's running on the express. Super dangerous. Don't do that. Um, but I'm one of those people, right? There was recently, unfortunately, somebody who passed away while rescuing their dog that had jumped in Lake Michigan. We actually live right off I can see the lake from my house. We live right off of Lake Michigan. So, and it was a local person here. Their dog had fallen into the water while they were walking. You jumped in and it was below zero water. As you know, we're in Chicago. They
Hmm.
unfortunately didn't make it. And but I say that to say I would do anything for an animal, but you'd be surprised how often I'm challenged based my dedication to my craft and to animals is challenged when I won't answer questions outside of a work setting, if that makes
Ah,
any sense. And I worry again for my colleagues that are always on because when do you take time for yourself? When do
yeah.
you think about other things, right? I always tell people, first and foremost, number one, I am my sister's brother, number one. Number
Hmm.
two, I'm a husband. Number three, I'm a veterinarian. That's the
Hmm.
order it goes in. Uh,
Yeah.
and I have colleagues that are the complete opposite, right? Other way around. They're a veterinarian first, a husband or a spouse second, or a parent third, or some. One of my mentor actually, he always went by that he was a husband first. I'm sorry, a father first, a husband second, and a veterinarian third. And that's where I learned that phrase from. And that's how I've tried to approach things is staying compartmentalized. So I'll be honest with you, Ryan, I really don't think about work outside of work other than right your P&Ls, your KPIs, right, business stuff
Right.
that you have to deal with. But my caseload I don't deal with. I refuse to be the person that lays awake at night and says, did I throw that suture right? Did I prescribe that right thing? Now I'll make a note to myself and say, you know what, Tom, in the morning, double check that dose of Clavamox, double check, run the number again, make sure the dose is right, review your records again, make sure, do you want to change something? But right now
Yeah.
you need to go to bed. Right
Well,
now.
what message would you give to someone struggling with that?
Yeah, and let me add in the caveat that what I'm saying is easier said than done. So I
Okay.
am aware of that. I am being very aware. It almost sound because I'm aware that it almost sounds like telling somebody who suffers from depression to just be happy, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
soul crushing to say, but it's cringe when we hear that, but we hear
Hmm.
it sometimes. But
Hmm.
so I'm not saying just don't think about it, right? That's not how it's done. That's not how anything's done. Things take time and things take training. And again, part of being a leader is being open and transparent with what you're comfortable. So I'm going to be open and transparent with you. I suffer from mental health issues. I am under treatment. I've actually just recently started exiting 7 years of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Hmm.
Which is great therapy. I recommend it to people. It's CBT, cognitive behavioral based therapy. It's fantastic. Think about it. Again, And I say that because you have to change the way you are viewing situations. So when you want to make a change, just like habits, right? Habits take 28 days to develop, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to decide for yourself, is that your identity or not? And if it is, you should consider no job should be anyone's identity, because our titles, and this also is something that I've heard before, our titles are on loan to us, right? When I depart this world, when it's my time, I'm not departing as a veterinarian, right? It's not, I'm departing as Tom, who was a husband, who was a dog dad, who hopefully one day will be a father, right? He was he's a business owner. He was a pillar of the community. Think anything you want, throw something on there. But, I'm going to be more than just a veterinarian.
Right.
And
Right.
we should all strive to be ourselves. And yes, a veterinarian is a part of who we are, but it's not the whole picture. And I think we kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes if we only just think about vet med and only vet med and nothing but vet med. And it gets reinforced in us from didactics, right? Because at that point you are eating, sleeping, drinking, education, right? Your schooling, your notes, everything. But you slowly over time have to come out of that mindset and free. I'll dare say it, free yourself, right? And walk out at the end of the day, right? When your records are done and your patients and treatments are done, everything's done, you leave for the day, and it's almost like severance a little bit. You come out and the elevator door opens, and this isn't on anymore, and it's just Tom, right? No longer Dr. Vega, it's just Tom. And Tom has lots of other stuff to do besides work, right? Tom has stuff to do because of work, right? So there's other ways out there, and I don't like to give mental health advice because I'm not a mental health professional, and I do highly encourage people to seek a mental health professional. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's easy to seek a mental health professional when you don't have insurance, for example. Unfortunately, VA, CBT sometimes are underinsured, right? And we can also talk about things like that. I've seen your other episodes, about from practice managers, and it makes total sense. We need to invest more. The more we invest in the form of benefits, EAP programs, EPA programs, the more we invest in this, the better it'll get over time. But all of this happens over time.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that, and you're 100% correct. There's a stereotype that being a vet is just, quote, playing with puppies all day. What's something people don't realize about this profession?
Yeah. Okay. Well, for starters, yes, we do take a lot of pictures with puppies, but what you don't see is right after that picture, when that puppy threw up on you, when that puppy peed on you, when that puppy pooped on you. So it's way more than just playing with puppies. But no, I would tell people that I am a healthcare professional. And like a nurse at a human hospital, or a doctor at a human hospital, same thing in a vet hospital, or nurse in a vet hospital, sometimes I meet people on the worst day of their life, and that can be very taxing and I have a responsibility and an obligation to each and every one of my patients, but not just to my patients, because I'm going to tell you something, Ryan. I like help. Contrary to popular belief, I'm one of those veterinarians that doesn't hate people. I actually very much enjoy people. And I like helping people. And this is how I help people. I help them by helping take care of one of the most important things to them. And so I meet people sometimes on the worst day of their life. And I have to deliver really bad news. And there may be a puppy appointment somewhere in there. But no, I have to counsel people, right? There are a husband and wife that are now arguing over whether or not to treat and how to treat, and I'm mediating that. Or the husband's there, but the wife's not, and we're trying to get a hold and get answers. I'm, again, working that through, right, and helping that person. Or a senior citizen, right? That's, having trouble even getting their pet to the vet, right? And they're able to get there. We've got to get things done, or they have a lot of questions, things like that. We're all perfectly normal, right? I would love to answer husbandry questions because I think I'm really big on preventative medicine, right? And we can prevent a lot of things through husbandry, which is really affordable, right? That's also my other saying is the cheapest form of treatment is prevention. So take that with what you will too. But yeah, so it's not all puppies. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of talking to people, right? Yes, my patient is there, but my patient's not talking to me.
Right.
My patient is, either not feeling so hot, so just laying around, or fearful, and they're literally, scared for their lives and lashing out, or they're super happy and jumping up and down, even though my test results and my physical exam are telling me something's really wrong. And so yes, it's a lot of a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. It is very much about the people. And
Yeah.
you are correct. When people say that they get into the field to get away from people because they don't like people, well, there's a lot of people interaction with this, and the better you are with that, the further you can go and get, because we are partnering with people, like you were alluding to, in the most distressful times of their life for some people,
Yeah.
and being able to help them navigate with that and walk beside them with like that really builds and is an opportunity for trust, and
Yeah.
it breaks so many walls down.
Yeah, it really fills. I almost get a double filled bucket because it fills my heart to see my patient improving, or my patient to even be stable. Because a lot of, I'm a general practitioner, so I see wellness based. I see vomiting, diarrhea, coughing, sneezing, all that good stuff.
Hmm.
But I love to see my healthy patients. I do. I love to see them once a year or every 6 months to just make sure they're doing good.
Yeah.
I love to see my geriatric patients, having a great quality of life and maintaining their quality of life and living out their golden years as they should. And I love to see my patients improving when they're not feeling so hot, right?
Hmm.
But I also, what fills my bucket on the other two-legged side is the sigh of relief this owner breathes, right? Whether it was because of the finances, or just because they were scared of losing their pet, or for any reason, whatever had them distraught for being there, right? To see that sigh of relief off their face is just so heartwarming sometimes, and it lets me know that at the end of the day, if I can just help one person or one animal, I have done my job for the day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Concierge care feels like the future. How do you see this model shaping access and equity in veterinary medicine?
Yeah, so I don't I don't know if I would say it's the future. I would say it's a branch.
Okay.
I think of vet med as a tree, with the trunk being the foundation, right? Which is our science, right? Science is the foundation
Mhm,
of
mhm.
medicine, whether it's veterinary or human medicine. Science is the foundation of medicine, and there's branches of that, right? A branch can go off into specialties,
Sure.
wildlife, exotics, so on, equine, farm animal, small animal,
Yeah.
acupuncture, integrative, so these branches come off as time goes on, right? Because new things happen, right? Integrative wasn't a thing 50 years ago, right? So,
Right. Right.
or it was, but it was up and coming, right? Or TCBM in general is more, it's Eastern medicine. So it's always, I should say, it's actually been around for quite a long time, but I should say Western world wise, fairly new to the Western world, but, or the hemisphere. But I do think it is the future of convenience, if that makes any sense. So
Mm,
concierge companions, like, and I said at the beginning of our chat together, is that gold standard has always been there. I am a firm believer that my colleagues do their best to strive to practice gold standard medicine and offer gold standard medicine. So this is no different. We're doing what everybody else is doing, which is offering gold standard medicine. But the convenience is where it comes in. Is Fluffy, do they run and jump in the car and they go to the vet? And that does happen a lot too, right? That's a subsect.
Yeah.
Or is this, Rex, or I can't think of a cat name off the top of my head, Mr. something, Mr. Fluffy. Or is it, my cat is hiding under, the sofa and I can't get to them into the carrier to get to the vet, right?
Right.
Or is it, I just, I live downtown, right? There's no parking. I don't own a car because I live in downtown Chicago. So I have to get an Uber, and then it's an extra Uber for a pet, and then I got to get there, and then I got to get one back and schedule that, and all these fees, and then I have my regular visit fees associated with that, right? So it's a it's what's already going on, but conveniently.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big believer. I'm not a big believer in saying we're better than this one or we're better than that one. I'm very proud of my field. I'm very proud of my colleagues, and I stand with all of my colleagues. So I stand with my colleagues in that we all offer or do our darndest to offer gold standard medicine all the time. But also, we're human too.
I totally understand that. Thank you for breaking that down for us. I think that that's something that was a big misconception, and the way that you explained it really, I love the way you, I love the way you broke it down. It is definitely a
I'm not
branch.
here to compete. I'm just here to do, because there's not enough of us as there is. So there really isn't competition. There's not enough of us.
Right.
So I'm not here to compete. I'm here to just roll up my sleeves with my colleagues and get in one of these branches and start helping, because that's what we're here to do.
I really love that you said that, because that's exactly how I feel. And that, with this podcast series that I'm doing, it's my way of jumping in and spreading awareness, um,
Yeah.
for everyone. And there isn't anyone who I wouldn't interview or highlight in this veterinary
Yeah.
professional field, and we do need more of that.
Yeah. We need a lot more positivity.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I appreciate you helping me spread that.
Yeah. And I appreciate
uh,
you for doing the work of spreading that positivity, because, like I said, my colleagues, our heads are in the trenches, right? We're on the front
yeah,
lines.
yeah,
But we need people like you, nurses like you, PMs like you, chiefs of staff like you, right? That are geared towards the development of the people in vet med, while we're in the trenches. So yeah.
no, I appreciate that. You've led teams, built culture, and elevated standards. What's your secret sauce for mentoring the next generation of veterinary leaders?
Yeah. So that's going to be new for me
Okay.
in mentoring veterinary leaders. I have a long career in leadership outside of veterinary medicine, but the cool thing about that is that all of those skills are transferable, right? Everything I've been talking to you about, I didn't learn in vet school, right? Servant
Right.
leadership, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, leaders of many hats theories, right? You don't learn that heck, the communication you and I are having right now, right? Yes, we have communication labs and things like that, but you learn that over time, right? Or through
Right.
experience. So all of that is transferring over as I begin to build up Concierge Companions. All of those skills are transferring over, and there is not really any alteration they have to be done. You talk to a person the way you talk to a person, whether you work in a law office, a hospital, a subway. I'm hungry, so I'm thinking of food now. But
Me too.
yeah, so wherever where you talk, that doesn't change, right? Communication is communication. What changes is the style, but two people literally exchanging words doesn't change, right? That's been around forever.
Right. Right. Wow. Couple rapid fire
So
questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't finish your question. So from a mentorship standpoint, I want to get in, and I want people to grow the way they want to grow. I
Mm,
don't believe that, hey, you're going to do things this way, right? No, yes, you're going to practice gold standard medicine, right? And we're going to follow standards of care that are, written into policies, into statements from the colleges, right?
Right.
We're going to follow those, yes, but I want you to be free. I don't like when people. So this is, I'm going to tell you a story, Ryan. This is
Okay.
how I know when it's time to leave a job. It's time to leave a
Okay.
job when I get there and I have to get there 30 minutes to an hour early to sit in the car and come to terms that I'm going to be here for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. When I lose that ability to just, get to, let's say I start at 8:30, right? Get there around 8:15, 8:20, great. When I start getting there at 7:30, at 7:15, Dr. Vega's not happy. And he's already thinking about leaving. Because that's not okay. And I don't want my employees to not want to go to work. I don't want people to not want to do their job. One of the things you've talked about in previous years, and I just want to touch on really quickly, is paying in compensation for veterinary professionals, right? I remember as a VA a long time ago, and I won't mention clinics or anything, but a very long time ago, as a VA, and I remember being at work, helping to monitor for surgery, and my mind just off because I had a credit card bill that I was behind on. My car was past due, and I was working full time, 40, 50 hours a week. And, yeah. And you think about you're distracted, right? And I'm also, one of the worst things you could do to break my heart is that old school, leave your problems at the door when you go to work. Absolutely not. That's a red. Everybody that's listening, employers that tell you to leave your personal life at the door, that is a red flag. This is not the show Severance. We don't have split personalities. You are who you are before you walked in that door, while you're in that building, and when you walk out of that building. Don't do that. Because it's not feasible. It's just not feasible. And you can do it here and there in an emergency, sure, but it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
That's where the burnout comes. That's when the breakdowns happen. That's when I know we joke about like crying in the break room or crying in the supply room. That's not okay. In any scenario, in any field, in any profession, that's not okay. That's not part of the process. That's not trust the process, right? That's not what that is. Trusting the process is you're going to study for 12 hours to pass this test, right?
Right.
That's trusting the process, right? Because the processes that you study for this test, that's really hard, right? That's trusting the process. So back to the checking your problems at the door. That's also part of my leadership style. No, you're having a bad time. Okay, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not any of this. But what can as your leader, I need to find the support for you, right? That's where the many hats come in, right? I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about whatever your personal, I mean, yes, if you want to share that with me, sure, but I'm not going to suss that out of you, right? I'm not a mental health professional, and as NAMV has taught us too, right? Being able to recognize and direct that person to the help they need, right? And that's where I come in as a leader, is that I don't know everything. I always use the analogy of sports to this point, actually. A basketball coach, for example. A basketball coach can't shoot a three-pointer, but their players better. And they show their players how to do it. That's the difference between leadership, being a leader, being a boss, or just being a micromanager, right? Is that I'm not here to tell you how to do it, or that I'm here to show you how to do it and things like that. But just because doesn't mean we can do it, right? So no different than the basketball coach. Like I said, the basketball coach, the baseball coach isn't hitting home runs. But their players are, right? And they're encouraging their players. They're finding what works best for their players to coach them. And that's the term I like better than anything. I like leader. I don't like boss. I don't like, direct report. I'm a big fan of coach though, because that's where it comes in, is that I'm here to coach you. And what are coaches, just like in sports, right? Coaches listen to you when you have a problem. Coaches support you. Coaches, instill discipline as well, right? If for corrective action reasons, right? If something, steer you in the right. It's called corrective action. It's an action you're taking to correct something. So all of that is, that's where I come from in my leadership, and that's how I want to develop people, is plant the seed and let it grow, right? Don't put that, chicken wire that goes around it so it grows straight up, right? No, let it branch, let it figure itself out. And when you give people the flexibility and the autonomy, when you give people the autonomy to be themselves, to practice the way they want within the confines of the consensus statements, right? Not saying go willy-nilly, but when you give them the autonomy to practice within the confines of the consensus, you'd be surprised the great things that happen. And again, somebody wanting to come to work, right? I look forward to going to work. Now, is work hard? Yes. But I look forward to it because it's rewarding, and even right before I became the leader, right, as an associate DVM, I was supported at all times. I wanted to come to work because I knew I would be able to practice gold standard medicine the way I wanted to, right? I wasn't going to be presented with a, superficial pyoderma and immediately have to give, I don't know, Clavamox, right? That's not my go-to, but I don't immediately have to give, X medication, right? I had the freedom and flexibility within, again, the confines, but I had the freedom and flexibility to practice how I saw fit to tailor my medicine to that patient. And no different, I tailor the work environment to that direct report or that associate.
Wow. I mean, preach.
Yeah. You learn a lot in leadership, and you'd be surprised. And again, the problem comes down to the investment, though. And not just here, even when I was in wireless communications before coming to veterinary medicine, if we're not investing in these programs, nothing's going to happen. If, so many, even EAP programs, right? Or employee assistance programs, EAP programs, right? Game changers in corporates in general. When I worked in telecommunications, game changer. Hey, you're struggling with, I don't know, housing, food, maybe both, childcare, mental health, FMLA, parental leave, bereavement, all of these things, right? That people have lives outside of these buildings. And once we realize that this person is just like I'm so much more than a veterinarian, Jane Doe or John Doe is so much more than my nurse, so much more than the practice manager, so much more than the inventory, so much more than the receptionist. They lead whole lives outside of this building. And once we treat people like people and not like production units, that's when things will change. So I'm not going to say things will change in 5 years, things will change in 10 years, things will change in our generation. No, things aren't going to change until we invest.
And wow. I mean, thank you for speaking on these subjects and giving these topics, giving these ideas, giving these feelings a voice.
Yeah, I hope so, because I've been there, right? I was a veterinary assistant. I was a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. I worked at one of the laboratories, the diagnostic laboratories, in their parasitology department. I have been a DVM student. I am now a DVM. I've been privileged enough to be able to understand the many facets that make up veterinary medicine. But at the end of the day, Ryan, when you boil it all down, we still are people outside of these buildings. Your scrubs come off, right? My scrubs come off, and we put on normal people clothes, right? And we go do things. We have families, we have pets of our own, we have activities, hobbies, friends, right? We have we're so much more than our titles. Again, I want to reverberate one more time that our title, your title, whatever it is on loan to you. We don't take it with us when we die. And the last thing I'll say on this subject is there's a Lady Gaga song, and it's called Without You. And it's, we got a whole lot of money and we still pay rent because you can't buy a house in heaven, right? You can't take the money with you. My title, I'm not going to arrive in wherever I arrive in my afterlife as a doctor, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to arrive as everything else I was in my life other than a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So that's at least my philosophy on it.
Wow. You know, I think that we're gonna leave you guys with that. I mean, I think Dr. Vega here left us with a lot to chew on, a lot to strive for, and the direction that this is the way I feel like of the future, and
Yes.
it's for our hospitals, our managers, our corporate owners to really reinvest in the people.
Yes. The future, Concierge Companions is not the future. The way I manage Concierge Companions is what's going to be the future of Vet Med.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Tom Vega, trailblazer, mentor, medical innovator, thank you for showing us how compassion and leadership are changing Vet Med for the better. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe, share, and keep supporting the voices that care for our animals and for our future. Dr. Tom, thank you for taking time to speak with me today and share your knowledge. I'm going to have to come down to Chicago and visit you.
You're always welcome, Ryan, and thank you. It was my absolute pleasure to be able to spend some time to talk about things that matter, and to talk about not so much the future, but the things we need to change in order to ensure we have a prosperous future.
I love that. Yes. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. I'm going to post your handle in the description of this video. We're
And
going to
people
get
can
this
always
out
reach
there.
out. Feel free to reach out, whether you're in veterinary medicine. I'll be honest with you. If you're not in veterinary medicine, I'll tell you what I tell everybody. Seek a veterinary professional. If you are a veterinary professional with a non-medical related question, whether it's, you know, how do I approach my PM about this? How do I deal with this? What are your thoughts on this? If you care so much to want my opinion, DM me at I am Dr. Vega, Dr. Vega, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you. The only way forward is through helping people. It's by people helping people, and if we can do that, we're going to get somewhere.
I love that. Thank you again for joining us. Yeah, we're going to get this out there for you all to consume. This was one of the best interviews. Thank you for taking time.
Thank you, Ryan.
There's so much more to do, and I'm pretty sure we will be working with each other in the future.
I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Ryan from Athletic Conceptual Training. We're serving the Livermore area and we really want to partner with you. Students, if you're ready to get better in basketball, volleyball, tennis, come and check us out. Look at our Instagram. We have a lot of content and we got more coming. We're one of the fastest growing company in the Bay Area and there's no other place to be. Parents, if you really want to unlock the potential of your student athlete, come and partner with us. Or if you yourself want to come out and get some training with Coach Ryan, don't hesitate. All you have to do is click the link below. Unlock your fullest potential. Be ready. Get up, act today. Let's see you soon.